Then the announcer called out the name of the next contestant, a street performer. Those words alone carried a certain weight. Some people smiled with curiosity, others leaned back with quiet skepticism. Street performers are often overlooked, passed by in busy cities, their music drowned out by traffic, footsteps, and daily stress. Many people hear them but do not truly listen, and yet, sometimes, those voices carry the deepest stories of all. From the side of the stage, a man slowly walked out into the spotlight. His clothes were simple, worn but clean. There was nothing flashy about him. No dramatic outfit, no backup dancers, no special effects. Just a microphone, a guitar resting against his body, and a face marked by years of living, hoping, and surviving. He paused for a moment, looking out at the sea of faces in front of him. You could see it in his eyes, a mix of nerves and determination, fear and quiet confidence. The judges greeted him and asked the usual questions. Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you here? His voice was calm but carried a rough edge, the kind that comes from singing on cold nights and hot afternoons, from performing on street corners where applause is rare and rejection is common. He explained that he was a street performer, that he played wherever people would listen, outside subway stations, on sidewalks, in parks. Music was not just his passion, it was his way of surviving. He spoke about how many times he had been ignored, how people walked past without making eye contact, how some days he sang for hours and earned almost nothing. Yet he kept going, because music was the one thing that never gave up on him, even when the world seemed to. There was a brief silence after he finished speaking. The judges nodded. The audience listened. Then came the question that changes everything on that stage. What are you going to perform for us today? He took a breath, adjusted the microphone, and softly answered that he would sing an original song. That single sentence shifted the energy in the room. Original songs are risky. They expose the soul of the performer. There is no famous melody to hide behind, no familiar lyrics to lean on. Just truth. The lights dimmed slightly. The background faded into darkness. The spotlight tightened around him. For a second, the entire theater felt still, as if everyone was holding their breath together. He began to play. The first few notes were gentle, almost fragile. His fingers moved across the guitar strings with ease, the sound warm and raw at the same time. Then he started to sing. His voice was not polished in the traditional sense. It was textured, emotional, real. It carried the sound of long nights, of stories told to strangers, of hope whispered into the noise of the city. From the very first line, the room changed. The audience leaned forward. Conversation stopped. Even the judges, who had seen thousands of performances, looked up with a different kind of focus. His lyrics spoke of loneliness, of standing on corners watching the world rush by, of dreams that feel invisible but refuse to die. He sang about music being his only companion, his only home. Each word felt honest. Each note landed exactly where it needed to. You could see people in the crowd exchanging glances, as if silently saying, "This is something special." As the song continued, his voice grew stronger, not louder, but deeper, more confident. The melody built slowly, carefully, like a story unfolding chapter by chapter. There was no rush. He let the emotions breathe. He let the silence between lines speak just as loudly as the lyrics themselves. Somewhere in the middle of the song, you could see a judge wipe away a tear. Another judge sat back, eyes wide, clearly moved. The camera cut to the audience, where people had their hands over their mouths, others nodding gently in rhythm, some already standing without even realizing it. The street performer closed his eyes as he reached the heart of the song. This was the part where his voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from truth. He sang about being seen, about wanting someone to stop, listen, and believe. He sang about all the people who never knew his name but heard his music for a few seconds before walking away. He sang about hope, fragile but alive, and then came the final chorus. His voice rose, filled with emotion, filling the theater in a way no one expected. The guitar rang out clearly, confidently. The lyrics soared, speaking of dreams finally being heard, of a voice finally finding its place. It was not just a song anymore. It was a release, As he sang the final line, his voice softened again, returning to that intimate tone from the beginning. He let the last note linger in the air, vibrating gently, before lifting his fingers from the strings. Silence for a brief moment. No one moved. No clapping. No cheering. Just silence, heavy and beautiful. Then someone stood up. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the entire theater was on its feet. The applause exploded like a wave, loud and unstoppable. People cheered, cried, clapped until their hands hurt. The street performer stood there, stunned. His eyes widened as he looked out and saw every single person standing, honoring him, listening to him, seeing him. Tears streamed down his face. He tried to speak, to say thank you, but the noise was too loud. The applause kept going. The judges stood as well, clapping with genuine respect, not as a formality, but as fans who had just experienced something rare. When the applause finally began to fade, the judges spoke one by one. They did not talk about technique or pitch or marketability. They talked about feeling, about truth, about how his song reminded them why music exists in the first place. One judge said that this was not just a performance, it was a moment. Another said that they would remember his voice long after the season ended. The street performer listened, still shaking, still emotional. For someone who had spent years being ignored, this was overwhelming. This was validation. This was proof that his voice mattered. As he thanked the judges and the audience, you could see a shift in his posture. He stood a little taller, smiled a little wider. For the first time, he was not just a street performer. He was an artist being heard by millions. The votes were cast. The result was clear. He was going through to the next round. The crowd erupted again, louder than before. He covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed by gratitude. As he walked off the stage, the cameras followed him backstage. He hugged people, laughed through tears, and kept saying that he could not believe it. That all those nights singing on the street had led him here, that every ignored performance, every cold evening, every doubt had been worth it. That night, the video of his performance spread across the internet. People shared it with captions about hope, about talent being everywhere, about listening more closely to the voices around us. Comments poured in from around the world. People said his song reminded them of their own struggles. Others said they had seen street performers differently ever since. What made this moment so powerful was not just the song itself, but the story behind it. A reminder that greatness does not always come wrapped in perfection. Sometimes it comes raw, honest, and brave. Sometimes it comes from the streets. This performance showed that talent does not need permission. It does not need a big stage to exist. It just needs a chance to be heard. And on that night, on the America's Got Talent stage, a street performer was finally heard. Not just by the audience in the theater, but by millions of people who stood up with them, even from behind their screens. Moments like these remind us to slow down, to listen, to look at the people we pass every day and wonder what stories they carry. Because the next voice that moves the world might be singing on a corner, waiting for someone to stop and listen.